All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lean It 101 video series. My name is Horia Slușanschi, and with me today we have...
Hello, guys. I'm Samuel Crescêncio. I'm speaking here from Brazil. And my friend Horia is far away from here.
I'm in New Zealand. That's right.
New Zealand. Guys, we decided to record this video to talk about, lean and agile and how we can use its principles and values and concepts to cope with the change that we are now facing. Everyone's facing this change. So Horia in New Zealand is facing the lockdown. I am here in Brazil doing this too. So the idea here is basically to explore some of the ideas that we all can use to improve our day-to-day jobs.
Very nice. It's very hard to imagine that humanity will very easily revert back to what we used to have before COVID-19. I think it's safe to assume that we're going into a new way of living and working and enjoying life. So I suggest that it's going to be a lot more effective to embrace the new normal, practice patience and kindness, and cultivate curiosity about how this may unfold.
Yes, and it's really a big change for all of us. And I've seen some of our friends and customers having their roadmaps and priorities completely changed. So suddenly, one thing that was really important now is not important anymore. One thing that was selling a lot before, now it's not selling anymore. So, and we know that some industries are being more impacted than the others. There are some industries that will grow in this situation, in this environment, but some others, especially like tourism, events, I don't know, maybe gyms and other types of businesses will suffer a lot.
Restaurants, cafes,
exactly,
might be in quite a bit of trouble. Yeah,
exactly. And now, well, we are using social distancing. We are like staying at home most of the time. But sometimes we need to go to the supermarket. Sometimes we need to meet somebody. And I am feeling already a very strange situation where, well, here in Brazil we are a very touch-feeling people. So we like to hug, we like to kiss, we like to shake hands. And now we don't have that anymore. Like we stay far away and the maximum we say, hey, hello, how are you doing? I think this will take time to revert. Even after we have, COVID-19 solved, I think this will take time to revert. Yeah. And you said about this new normal. I've heard this from a director of a big company in Brazil. He said, I don't see the point why we should go back to work in the way we used to before. Because in some way or another, now we are doing better than before. And people are really responded to this change, especially the ones that were not used to work remotely. And we know that the software industry, most of the companies are already, they have some sort of experience working remotely, but banks, energy companies, other types of institutions may not have the same experience, and for them it might be even harder to get going.
Yeah, a really interesting aspect of this coming from Lean is this idea of Genchi Genbutsu, to actually go and see the actual work. So in the context of distancing and remote work, we really need to take advantage of tools for video collaboration. And in hierarchical organizations, it'll be, I believe, a critical factor as to how often do senior leaders participate or jump in and notice what the actual work of practitioners and specialists actually is in their working environments, because you can't physically go and meet the people to see how they're working because they're no longer co-located in an office area. Everybody is in their own sort of home office, shall we say, in front of their machine. So it'll be very interesting to see how people, and if they actually get this notion that, well, actually, it's really important to join in and witness what others are doing as well. The challenge here is actually making the time, because many managers and many executives tend to be typically overburdened with a lot of meetings in their daily routine as well. They tend to not leave enough slack to do this kind of management by walking around, if you
Yeah,
will.
like a go
So
and see.
therefore, yeah, it'll be a critical aspect of how effective you become. Depends on how much you reflect and you invite diversity. Because in previous times we used to focus on do the work, do the work, do the work, reduce variability, do it exactly right. So a lot of people think that lean means just reduce variability. Make it flow, have no waste, don't wait, do it just enough, just in time. So there's this feeling that lean means just reduce diversity, but it doesn't. Lean also means explore, try different experiments. It's not just reduce waste, reduce waste, reduce waste. It's also imagine, try out different ways that may turn out to be even better.
Yeah,
So it's this focus on divergence and then convergence rather than just converge, converge,
right,
converge.
right.
David
Generate
Marquet,
options, right?
yeah, David Marquet talks about this as red work and blue work. So red work is the work of convergence and focus and the typical kind of industrial revolution type.
Mm,
Do the work. I will tell you what to do. Just do the work. Don't stop. Don't think. Don't do anything else. I'm the thinker. You're the doer. You will do what I say.
right.
Right? I'm the boss. I tell you what to do. But just red work doesn't help. And the language of red work doesn't work well in a context of inviting divergence. Because if you're always used to just
Exactly.
red work, red work,
Yeah,
we're in trouble.
yeah.
So
And
this is going to be really
I really
interesting.
like, yeah, I really like connecting to this point. I like the concept of concurrent engineering coming from Lean. And I like the way Mary Poppendix states this in her book, talking about set-based design or option
That's right.
thinking.
That's right.
Because when we don't have options, basically we have just one line of thinking. And usually this is one way to, you know, to put things in a bad situation or not to generate innovation at least. Um, and I really like this idea of getting people in a more inclusive way of management, where you can really get input from everybody, not being like the only big boss that will decide things alone. And I think this is very important. So when talking about this, you touched very important lean concepts. One of them is Genchi Genbutsu, which is the go and see. You touched about the flow. I'd like to explore a little bit about this because I think this is really very important, and talking about the value streams and so on. But still about the go and see. When we think about traditional companies, let's talk about before coronavirus. And for traditional companies where transparency is not something normal to this kind of environment.
Right. Right.
How
Right.
so? Even in a, what I want to say is that even in a physical environment, sometimes it's very hard to promote the Genchi Genbutsu, to promote visual space, visual collaboration, where people can really go and see what's going on, instead of having to ask people, hey, will it be delivered on time, right? You can just could go there and see, man, I see that you're not going to deliver on time. Your KPI is telling that to me. Would you like help? And that's probably would change a lot. But even in physical environments, it's hard to have that. And what about these digital environments anymore? Because think about this. Think about this executive in the big organization. Now, most of her people are working sometimes, or some part of the day they connect to get together, but most of the day they are working on their own. And there's not a common place like a kitchen where you get the coffee, where you meet people frequently in a daily basis.
Well, see, that's a question. Is there or isn't there such a common place? Because different teams have different habits. There's nothing stopping a team in this way of remote work from actually sharing a common chat channel. either through something like Slack or WhatsApp
Right.
or some other tool.
Right.
So you have the opportunity in the digital world to simulate a common sort of living space, if you will, for the team. We didn't used to do that because we didn't need to. We just were in the office and I could just reach out to people. But nowadays that we're working in such a dispersed fashion, we can actually do better and also have visibility on what's actually happening.
Right.
Another interesting concept here is this idea of the share of voice. In other words, say I'm in a meeting and there's just the two of us, and I do most of the talking and you do hardly any of the talking. The share of voice is imbalanced. So therefore, only one flow of ideas has been explored. Your contributions have been unheard. So that's not healthy
Right.
if we want to really discover things. So in a digital environment, again, good coaching is going to be important to actually notice what the share of voice is from the various participants and draw out the people that don't contribute
Yeah.
anywhere
Yeah.
near enough to their sort of um,
So in other words,
participation.
we need to get these guys out of the comfort zone.
Well, I don't know that it's a matter of comfort or discomfort.
Maybe
It's
it's a
more a matter of
discomfort, but yeah, like a fear to to talk.
yeah, but it's also a great opportunity to actually build trust and build teamwork by really engaging. You were talking earlier about how in Brazil you like to kind of hug and cuddle. Well, now we need to simulate that in this electronic
Yeah,
world,
yeah,
and because it's really important that we cultivate a really good emotional sort of health and the feeling of connection that I
yeah,
think it's really important for us to thrive in this context, because otherwise there are various studies of what happens if you isolate uh, um, uh, people, and it's not good at all. Yeah,
yeah. It's not.
it
Yeah.
you know,
In
in prison you get put in solitary, and that's a really harsh punishment,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
True.
no.
Although I've heard that in past in the 70s or 60s when the Japanese industry was like booming, especially the electronics, they used to put their engineers in very closed caves where you could just pass pizza under the door, you know. But I
Oh.
remember that was a time when we valued the star of the team. I mean, that big guy, the big architect, the big guy of the team. I think now the values really have changed. We now value the collaboration. We value the teamwork, you know, the inclusion of people in the discussion, and I think it's really important.
Things are too complex for a single person to kind of keep it in their mind from
Exactly,
start to finish.
exactly.
We really need teams to bring diverse perspectives and explore together.
Yeah.
It's kind of basic complexity, because in complexity you talk about, is there a global optimum? It's very much like a Mount Fuji, right? It's at the top, you reach the peak,
It's
hey,
like the
it's the
summit.
best, the top. But in most situations you don't have the one best practice, the one technique.
Sure. Yeah.
In
Kanban is
complex
better than
environments.
Scrum. Oh, no, sorry, I don't want to get in that arena.
No, but that's the thing. It depends very much on the context, and the context
Sure.
isn't so simple as to have one sort of one peak to say definitely that is always better. It's very much
Yeah.
a rugged landscape where you have different peaks and valleys, and as soon as you start to introduce dynamic change, then
Yeah.
it's no longer just rugged, it's a dancing
Exactly.
environment of complexity. So therefore, it's like surfing. You always need to kind of keep exploring and keep
Keep
evolving. It's
going.
about the
Keep flowing.
emerging.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Discover a better way of doing things rather than, oh, if only we implement this lean thing perfectly, we're going to be fine, right? We're going to be done. Well, no, because there is no one
Yeah.
perfect way
And,
of
and,
doing
and I
work.
think that connects with a very, very important lean principle, which is to deliver a continuous flow of value to customers. And when
That's
we
right.
talk about continuous flow, when we explore why continuous flow, and sometimes we even think that continuous flow was first put in place by Toyota, but actually was by Ford. and Toyota improved on the Ford ideas. But the thing is, when we put things in a continuous flow, we must guarantee that everybody will be playing in the band in the same rhythm. So all the providers have to be constantly keeping the pace, so that your production line will be able to keep the same pace. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing that these companies that are facing change now can do to improve, or to cope with the change in terms of rethinking their processes. Because, as I said before, for some of them, the strategy completely changed. What was important is not anymore. For some others, perhaps they may be facing a need of increasing demand, where they need to be even better than they were before. So I think that looking to the value stream, understanding where a demand starts, where demand finishes, and what happens with the demand all over the time that you spent with that demand opened, I think that's a very important exercise we need to do, and also define the rules, define the specific phases, and what are the acceptance criteria to go from one phase to another. And in another conversation that we had, you were exploring a little bit about queuing theory and theory of constraints, and I think both work and play a very important role in this, right?
Absolutely. Now, if we just drop the terms on people, and they go, the what? The theory of this? Exactly. Yeah. So why these things matter is not so hard to explain. So let's start from the observation that we're visual beings. Most of the information that we consume comes out of what we see. So it's really useful to start by visualizing the flow of value. And this is where value stream mapping is really, really useful. It's about capturing a visual representation of how value gets created, where do things come from, how do they get processed, and how do they reach their intended customers. So in developing a value stream map, that gives us an opportunity to see how value actually flows through our organization. Right. And usually this is a relatively complicated picture. The more complicated your product is, the more elements it'll have in its construction. So in a complicated pipeline system, there's always a crimp. So if you want to have fluid go through a complicated pipeline system, no amount of improving the flow upstream of the crimp is going to get us more flow at the end. Right. No amount of improvement downstream of the crimp is going to get us better. So
that's ultimately we need system thinking and elevate.
That's right. So understand that what matters is what the customers actually get. You want to get more value to the customers, you have to find where the crimp is and then deal with the crimp, rather than saying, "Oh no, it's not my problem. It's not in my division. You guys are the problem." So what? How does that help us as an overall organization?
Yeah,
me being insensitive about the fact that you're actually having this constraint, and I kind of need to help you if we want to do better together. Otherwise, because I pay no attention to what they're going through, we all fail. So it's no good.
Right. Man, really nice. Please go ahead.
In a nutshell, this is what the theory of constraints is about. So we call it a theory of constraints, but it's about finding where the crimp is and sort of.
And I like that when we explore these topics, we see that we're exploring complex systems, we're exploring queuing theory, we're exploring visual management as well, because when you say, well, let's visualize the flow of value, for a manufacturing company, that may be easier because the flow is physical. You see the equipment and material going through. But in a digital world, where especially people who work with knowledge services and like developers, engineers, this kind of knowledge is hidden. It's hidden in the hard disk, in the SSDs of the computers nowadays. We cannot really see. I've heard once a very interesting way of looking to this, which is information is a collection of bits and bytes hidden inside your computer, so people cannot see. And that reconnects to the Gente Genbutsu, because to Gente Genbutsu really works, you go and see, we need to create these visual workspaces where you can really see the flow. And I think, again, to work remotely, we need to learn to work with some tools like Trello, maybe Jira, Miro, mind mapping, as you said, and other tools that may help with that.
Let me touch on two things you mentioned. So queuing theory. What is it, and why do we care about queuing theory? So queuing theory is a branch of mathematics that teaches us about the impacts of queues on flow. So since we talked about I have the crimp, I want to improve the flow, there's another factor that comes out of the study of queuing theory, which is to say, if I want a smooth and steady flow to happen, then it is better if I have small and roughly equal-sized work chunks that I work with. Yeah, so
Shape
that's one
demands.
critical sort of insight, learning that it's really important to learn how to slice things in vertical chunks, right? So rather than in the past, we used to design everything or specify everything, then design everything, then build everything, then test everything. Then if you're lucky, you're going to get something delivered. So queuing theory teaches us that's really not good at all, because it takes a really, really long time to deliver something. If I want a rapid flow, then I need to have like a cake that has many, many layers. So I want all of the specification and design and development and testing and packaging, all of that being one thin layer.
Delivery,
so having thin layers, small, roughly equal sized shapes, delivered in a steady flow, that's way better. So mathematics teaches us this.
Sure. Just to add on that, and this will help to reduce variability, because when we have equally sized pieces, it's going to be much easier to manage and to forecast delivery dates. If you're based on throughput, will be much easier. Very interesting. And then we'd like to explore about theory of constraints too.
No. The other one, so we talked enough about theory of constraints. The other thing that you mentioned was information. Yeah. What we actually have in our computers isn't information; it's just data. It's just zeros and ones. If you kind of open up a binary editor and you look at what's there, it's just data. It only gets to become information if we apply meaning to it. If we actually observe it in a manner that makes sense to us. So making sense of data is what brings us information. Unfortunately, just information, if I say 42, it's like, okay, it's a bit of information, but what is it about? Right? That needs to be transformed into knowledge. And knowledge is about taking information and situating it in a particular social context. To say, aha, if you tell me that it is -5 degrees, okay, that means I better dress quite warm because it's below freezing. So knowledge is about making sense of the information in a given social context. And if you apply a time dimension to it and you build on various knowledge incidents, then you can reach wisdom to say, aha.
That's a great point. So basically, we are used to hear people talking about we need to have a data-driven decision making. But actually, as you said, only data is not enough. We need to put analytics and then to give context and then to extract insights on how we can.
That's right. You want to build wisdom, and wisdom doesn't come cheap or easy or fast.
That's an awesome point. And I just remember another one too regarding the queuing theory, as you said, and keeping the things flowing. It's about capacity management, because we have to, as you said, shape demand accordingly. We need to reduce variability, but we also need to look to how much we load our capacity. And I've seen companies, especially now, where we don't know what's the, we are hearing this, well, we need to get used to the new normal. Okay, but for some people, they still don't know what the normal is. We don't know, as I've heard you say other day, we cannot ask people to deliver in the same velocity that they used to do before. Now it may even deliver faster than before, but maybe we can deliver slower than before. But anyways, we will need to learn what's our capacity and try not to overload the capacity, because then we're going to incur in Muri, which is overload. And we know that when we overload the system, the queue sizes will really increase a lot, and will
start to increase.
the cycle times will explode, and things will get worse.
That's right. Yeah, you touch on a really powerful topic here, this idea of reducing variability. A lot of people think, okay, lean means we just reduce variability. But if we think lean is just about reducing variability, we're missing some critical aspects, because it's not just about execute, execute, execute. Lean is also about explore and learn and experiment, and things like, as you were mentioning, set-based design,
Right.
and learning to try out different experiments and different alternatives. We cannot afford to just focus on execute. We also need to take time to plan and reflect. So we need to insert specific pauses in our deliberations, in our work, to consider. So we've done this. Is this good enough? Should we do it differently? Should we even do this anymore?
Right.
What else could we try that could work better? We cannot afford to just say, okay, everybody, let's go back to what we used to do in January and do that, but more. No, because I don't know that it makes sense to do that anymore. We need to see, we need to notice what makes better sense. How can we better adjust? How can we try things, and not just focus into doing for too long of a stretch of time. It's much better to try a small experiment and notice, and try again and notice, and try again.
So short feedback cycles, right?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That's likely to have much less waste. And somebody gave this example of, if I'm a triathlete and I'm swimming, right? And how do I swim? I kind of have to go past that buoy over there and then past the other buoy. So if I just put my head underwater and swim, but hold on a second, when I'm swimming, I'm kind of looking towards the bottom of the sea. I don't know, am I actually going towards the buoy? So I have to take a little bit of time, kind of reduce my speed a little bit by kind of getting the head out and looking, am I still going towards the buoy? And if I'm not looking sort of frequently enough, then I may kind of swim in the wrong direction. I swim very fast, but away from where I need to swim. Yeah. So you got to balance how often you reflect. You kind of notice, okay, I'm still kind of going in the roughly right direction. Yeah. So these more frequent adjustments are likely to give you the better balance of speed and direction.
Yeah, and that reminds us that usually direction is more important than speed.
The tortoise and the hare, right?
Yeah. We are going to get there if we're in the right direction, but you're not going to get there. You can be very fast, but if you're not in the right direction.
Well, there are various cosmological models. It might be possible to reach the same place if you go all the way around the universe, right?
So, man, I think these are really, really very interesting topics. We've explored, I think, basically the core of lean thinking, like the Kenji Kimbutsu, go and see the importance of flow. We've talked a little bit about reducing waste, identifying and reduce waste. And there is still, especially when defining what direction is, I see that we still have two very important topics to explore. One is value management, is identifying what value really is for the company. And the other one is around chartering, because both of them will help to define direction for the teams and the organizations. And I know that the conversation is really good. I'm just a little bit concerned about the size of this video. Maybe we could record another session to talk about these topics.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, short sessions are good.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Samuel.
Thanks, man. It's really my pleasure to have this kind of conversation with you, and now being able to share this I've always learning with you, and it's about 10 years now that we've been developing this friendship, and for me it's really a very valuable friendship. So thank you for your time.
Likewise, and thanks everyone for your patience watching us.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Pay attention. We are probably gonna do more of these and release more videos like this to explore.
Not probably, definitely.
Yeah. And if you like that, please let us know. Comments.
Sure.
You know, share this. You know, like if you like, and dislike if you don't like this. That's gonna provide us feedback. Thank you, guys. See you next time.